Welcome to the fourth episode of Making a MOBA Character in 2023. In this video, we will create the indicators for our three abilities, having them enable and disable once you press your desired ability, and when you press the left mouse button, it will disable itself. The same will go if you press another ability. It will hide the first ability, and it will show the indicator for the ability you just pressed. With that being said, let's dive right into the video. The first thing we're going to do is download the ability indicators. I've put a link in the description where you can download the zip folders that holds the 4 images for our indicators. When you're in this site, press download and wait for it. Open the zip file and drag the images to your desktop. Make sure to drag them to your desktop first and not directly onto Unity. After they're on your desktop, you can then drag them into the Unity project. In Unity, we'll drag the UI icons into the UI folder. You're then going to want to change the settings on each of the indicator images. Select all 4 of them and have the texture type set to sprite, filter mode to point no filter, and compression set to none. We'll then move our character to the very left since we'll have a flat ground and we can see the indicators properly. After that, we're going to create the canvases that will hold the ability indicators. We're going to right click our player, go down to UI and click on canvas. Call this game object ability 1 skill shot canvas. Where it says render mode, click on it and set it to world space. We're then going to change the transform and scale of the canvas so that it's centered on the player game object. You can copy my settings right over here. I have pos X set to 0, pos Y to 1.5, and pos Z to 0 as well. We'll have the width and height both set to 1. We'll also change the scale to 3 in the X, Y, and Z axis. Now that we have the world canvas set up, we're going to create the first ability indicator, which is a skill shot type. Going to where you have the canvas in the hierarchy, right click it, go to UI, and add image. This will be our indicator. Drag the arrow indicator image that we imported earlier to the source image slot and copy these settings to get the MOBA look. The pos X is set to 0, the pos Y is set to -0.45, and the Z position is set to 1.1. We'll have the width to 10 and the height set to 4.2. And down on the scale, we'll have 0.05 on the X and Y and 0.01 on the Z. Let's move on to the second ability canvas. Again, we're going to create a canvas and call it ability 2 heal indicator canvas. We're going to need 2 canvases for the second ability, but we can add the second one later on. Add 1 canvas for now and set the render mode to world space. We're going to use the exact same rect transform as the first ability canvas. Once again, have the pos X set to 0, pos Y to 1.5, and the pos Z to 0. The width and height are both set to 10, and change the scale size to 3 in the X, Y, and Z axis. After that, we'll create an image as a child of this game object, just like before. We'll add the heal indicator image to the source image slot and change the rect transform to these values. The pos X and Z is set to 0, while the pos Y is set to 0.2. The width and height are both set to 10, and the X rotation will be set to 90. The scale for all the axis values will be 0.1. This canvas will be the one that will follow the mouse once you press the second ability. We can copy and paste this object and rename it to ability 2 range indicator. The only thing we need to change here is the source image, pos Y, and the scale. Attach the range indicator image to the source image. Have the pos Y to -0.45 and the scale on the X, Y, and Z axis will be set to 0.45 as well. That's pretty much the setup needed for the second ability. For the third ability, it's literally just a copy and paste of the first ability canvas, changing some values and the transform, and obviously the source image. Let's go ahead and copy the ability 1 skill shot canvas and paste it below. Rename it to ability 3 cone indicator canvas. Also change the image to the cone image, and these will be the settings for our transform. Have the pos X set to 0, the pos Y to -0.45, and the pos Z to 1.1. The width and height are both set to 10, and the scale on the axes are 0.2. Now that we have all our canvases ready to go, all that's left to do is edit our existing ability script and add the functions that will link our icons to their indicators. Go to your player and click on the ability script. There are a couple of variables we're going to add. Right below the ability 1, we're going to add a public canvas named ability 1 canvas and a public image which is named ability 1 skill shot. Moving a bit further down to the second ability, we'll add a public canvas called ability 2 canvas, a public image called ability 2 range indicator, as well as a public float named max ability distance, which we can set to 7 for now. The same thing for the third ability. A public canvas named ability 3 canvas and a public image named ability3 cone. After all the images, we're going to add 3 more variables: a private vector3 named position, a private raycast hit called hit, and last but not least, a private ray called ray. In the start method, we're going to make sure that all these canvases and images are disabled. This is done by having our ability1 skillshot.enabled equal to false, and have to repeat this process for the other 2 abilities. We can also do this for our canvas just to be safe, having the ability 1, 2, and 3 canvas.enabled also equal to false. Moving to the update method, we're going to create an array which is equal to the camera.main.screenPointArray with the input.mouse position. Next, we're going to create and add 3 new functions, which are ability1, ability2, and ability3 canvas. Outside of the update method, we're going to create the first canvas function. We'll have a private void ability1 canvas, and we're going to do an if statement where if the ability1 skillshot is enabled, write another if statement where it uses the physics.raycast ray out hit with mathf infinity. It will then set the vector3 position variable we had earlier to the hitPoint.x, hitPoint.y, and hitPoint.z. We'll then have a quaternion. We'll label it as AB1 canvas, short for ability1 canvas. Have it equal to quaternion.lookRotation position minus the transform.position. We'll then set the ability1 canvas.Euler angles equal to the new vector3, which we will store 0, AB1 canvas.Euler angles.y, and AB1 canvas.Euler.z. To finish it off, we're going to have the actual ability1 canvas game object rotation equal to the quaternion lerp AB1 canvas, ability1 canvas.rotation, and then 0. That's pretty much all we need for the ability1 canvas. Onto the second ability, have a private void named ability2 canvas, and the first thing we're going to do is have an int called layer mask and have that equal to the layer mask.getMask player. And right below it, we'll have an if statement that uses the physics.raycast ray out hit and mathf infinity, as well as adding the layer mask onto that. We'll write an if statement where if the hit.collider.gameObject isn't our player game object, we'll set the position equal to the hit point, similar to what we did with the first ability canvas. We'll create designated variables for this method, where var called hitPosDirection is equal to the hit point minus transform.position, which is then normalized, a float called distance, which is equal to the vector3.distance between the hit point to where we have our mouse and comparing it to our transform.position. From this distance, we'll have it so equal to the mathf.min, which stores the distance and the max range where we can use our ability. We'll then do a new hitPos variable that is equal to the transform.position plus the hitPosDirection times the distance. Then, to finish it off, we'll have the transform.position of our ability2 canvas equal to the new hit position. Now for the third ability. Since it's pretty much the same UI function, we're going to copy and paste the first ability1 canvas void. We're just going to change some variables to suit the third ability. So copy the ability1 canvas void, and all we're going to do is rename it to ability3 canvas, and where it says ability1 skillshot, we'll have ability3 cone. We're just going to change the values that have 1 in them to 3. That's pretty much all we need so far. Now before we head back into Unity, we need to quickly adjust the ability inputs for each ability to disable and enable each of the canvas depending on which ability is currently selected. Going to our ability1 input, we're going to add and make some small adjustments. We'll have the ability1 canvas.enabled equal to true, ability1 skillshot.enabled equal to true, and for disabling the other abilities, we'll write ability2 canvas.enabled equal to false, ability2 range indicator, which is also set to false, as well as the ability3 canvas and the ability3 cone. We'll then create an if statement where if the ability1 skillshot is enabled and we press the input.mouse button, we'll drag these lines of code into here, and then shortly after, we'll disable the ability1 canvas along with the ability1 skillshot. For the ability2 input, it's sort of different, so we'll set the enable for both the ability2 canvas and ability2 range indicator to true, and have the ability1 and 3 variables set to enabled false. For this particular ability, we want to hide our cursor when we select it. This is done by doing cursor.visible equal to false. We'll then have an if statement where if the ability2 canvas is enabled and we press the mouse button, we'll drag these lines of code again, which is what will trigger the cooldown, disabling our ability2 canvas and indicator, as well as turning the cursor visible back to true. and I only now realized that I have this particular if statement in the wrong position. So I'll just update it in the ability 1 and ability 2 input, and it should look something like this. For the last ability, just like what we've been doing this entire video, we're going to copy and paste the ability 1 input changes and apply it to the ability 3 input. We're going to change the variables to ability 3 canvas and cone being enabled and disabling the ability 1 and 2. And when we have it pressed, change the numbers to 3 instead of 1, following up with the ability 3 canvas enabled to false, as well as the ability 3 cone also being set to false. Now we're done finally updating the script. Going back into Unity, make sure to drag each of the canvas's images into the respected slot in the inspector. In the end, it should look a little something like this. When you press play, you can see when I press either abilities, it will activate the indicator and disable the rest. The ability 1 and 3 will rotate around the player based on where I have the mouse position. And for the ability 2, since there's a certain range where I can use the ability, I can't have the indicator go outside the circle. You can obviously change the max radius, but you'd also need to increase the scale size of the canvas just to mirror the value that you put. And now when I press the left mouse button when the indicator is showing, it will go on cooldown. Now we have a functioning ability indicator that can go on cooldown when being pressed. That's pretty much all that's needed to be covered in this episode. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below and I'll try my best to help you. Anyways, thank you all for watching and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye!